Hello, welcome to Mediation Workshops. My name is Celine.
I'm Eva Perales.
And I am Monica Moon.
So, our topic for this is group conflict. And what is group conflict? It is an interpersonal problem that occurs between two or more members of a group and affects results of teamwork. So the group does not perform at optimum levels. Why we chose group conflict? A couple reasons. It's firstly relatable to our backgrounds as CI students, so we see it every day. It's a real conflict that occurs on many levels, and it has multiple branches. We figured out through surveys and interviews of CI students that there are multiple forms of group conflict. So there's substantiative, personal, procedural, social, and competition. And we realized through our needs assessment and these surveys and interviews that the best way to address all of these different types of conflict is to implement them through a mediation workshop. So, welcome to CI's Mediation Workshop. We will be hosting workshops Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. At CSUCI Bell Tower Classroom. This is best for the students because it's convenient with everybody's different schedules. It's on campus. We can help solve group conflicts step by step. And the overall idea of our workshops are basically to help a conflict become solved, as well as how to communicate better, ensure that we are doing our best through these workshops. We'll introduce a specific conflict a different day every day, and as well as shows examples, do's and don'ts of the conflict, and discuss certain theories to help better with communicating. And so with the time allotted, we're going to just do one example of what our workshop would look like. That will be procedural conflict in group settings. So the outcome for this workshop is to make sure that everybody knows better ways to understand and communicate when procedural conflict arises in group settings. So take a moment, just a quick minute or so, and ask yourself, what 2 or 3 steps do you think you would do to solve this conflict before we get into detail?
The statistics that were being used in this survey, it was the factorial, which meant that the 2 variables.
All right, now that you've had a moment or two to think about some steps to solve this, we're actually going to get into the do's and don'ts of procedural conflict. Let's start with the do's. On the positive side, you want to listen to your other group members. Another do would be to set actual detailed goals, and let's get into the don'ts. If you listen to your other group members, you won't make rash decisions. If you set detailed goals, you actually won't procrastinate and actually won't jump to conclusions. And to help incorporate our do's and don'ts, we're going to get into a learning conversation.
So here I will talk about creating a learning conversation. For starters, we must remember you cannot change people, meaning trying to change someone's idea can result to an argument, and the person will be less likely to listen to your idea. And we want the other person to be open to the idea instead of feeling defensive. So in order to reach this goal, we must first listen, understand, and respect what they're saying. And this will most likely lead to them being open to our idea instead of changing their idea and your own idea. Next, the short-term relief and long-term costs, meaning you can either state what you want to implement in a group project, and if they do not approve to it, you either say nothing more and supposedly relieve the tension when in fact you are not, or you can instead do a long-term cost, meaning you can bring up the topic and discuss why your idea was not implemented, and this will prevent any tension in the future. And in order to reach this, we must use the curiosity stance. So we ask questions instead of assuming why they didn't pick your idea into the group project. And this will hopefully relieve conflict between the group. Next, we have don't hit and run, meaning raise an issue in good timing. So if you want to discuss your idea and why either it was not implemented, you want to do it in good timing. We do not want to discuss it when someone is focusing on on another group project and we burst it out as a negative comment. And before doing this, you must know the purpose of your idea. For example, ask why you want to bring it up into this group. Ask why it is important to you. And next, we will lead to the feelings conversation.
All right, so this is really important because it really discusses how we think they will feel prior and after. And I think the important part is we really want to emphasize on how we think instead of how they actually feel. And so in the lecture, Professor Barry talks about when we don't understand, we tend to translate our feelings into judgments, attributions, blame, characterizations, and problem solving. And so attribution theory and psychodynamic theory play a very evident role within the procedural conflict. And so attribution means, the definition is an inference or an assumption made about the causes of our own or another's behavior. And so in an internal attribution, it means the belief that other people act as they do because they want to, whereas an external attribution is the belief that other people act as they do because they are pressured to by others. And so the attribution theory's definition is people act as they do in conflict situations because of the inferences they make about others based on their behavior. And so the psychodynamic theory is people experience conflict because of the tension arising from their intrapersonal, such as internal, psychological, emotional, and mental states. And within those three, there are going to be ID, superego, and ego. And so this slide really talks about how they actually felt before and after. And so the first of the three conversations is the what happened conversation. And within the what happened conversation, we kind of concluded as a group that the truth assumption is the most relatable and relatable one. So it basically is that I am right and you are wrong, and so their conflicting perceptions are really almost invisible, and so you only see really one side, whereas conversation is really important, and you need to, obviously move away from what you assume and really move towards what actually is. And the feelings conversation discusses how we basically tend to translate our feelings into blame and attributions, maybe even without ourselves really knowing it, because at the end of the day, we don't really know how the other individual actually feel, and we don't know how, each other interpret each other's thoughts. And the identity conversation is basically, am I confident about this whole conflict? Am I confident about how I feel, or do I even feel confident as a whole? And we even question the other members, are they confident? And so those three conversations are really important because it really helps resolve what they actually felt before and after, instead of obviously jumping to conclusions.
All right, so that was a lot of information to take in for our mediation workshop on procedural conflict. We hope that it was very useful to you, but just in case, we have this quick survey. If you wouldn't mind rating us on these three questions, we'd really appreciate it. So that way we best know how to change our workshops and make sure that they are effective for each individual. So with procedural conflict mediation workshop, first, we'd like to know if overall we were useful with this workshop. Like, was it useful to you on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not very useful and 5 being very useful? 2, how overall would you rate the teaching quality? So today was a PowerPoint, and sometimes we have hands-on interactions, but today the material was presented to you at a really good teaching quality. 3, how much of the knowledge and techniques that you learned today, through our creating a learning conversation and the different conversations that people can have in procedural conflict, will you actually use these techniques on a scale of 1 to 5? We'll give you a moment to look at this, and if you can write them down, email us or comment on our video. We'll be very appreciative, and we can hopefully better procedural conflict and how to solve it. Thank you.
There was a lot of table that explained each variable. In the cons,